Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. We are in a crisis. The government is clearly unable to handle the crisis of flooding and collapse of infrastructure throughout Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Local Government told us a few days ago that the Prime Minister doesn't sleep. At least he has a warm bed to sleep in, compared to the hundreds, thousands of flood victims who have water literally up to their neck inside their household. Their furniture, appliances, bed, clothes, everything is floating. We have not a lack of resources, but a lack of coordination, a lack of management, and a lack of leadership in this country. The current flood crisis that we are facing has resulted because of poor action to prevent, poor response, and poor coordination. As a Member of Parliament for St. Augustine constituency, this is the 7th flood that we have experienced in the past 2 months. Areas within St. Augustine constituency that have been affected include St. Augustine South, Spring Village, Real Spring, Valsain South, and Bamboo No. 2. However, the breaches in the watercourses that resulted in this flooding was brought to the attention of the authorities months ago. In other parts of the country, for instance in the Oropouche South, the South Oropouche River Basin, again, those breaches were identified months ago. In Suchet Trace, Tulsa Trace in the vicinity of the picnic site, more than 300 meters of that embankment collapsed. In the St. Joseph River, the Wyabal River, water has been flowing in from the tributaries into Valsain South every time it rains, and the residents there have been begging for some kind of temporary measure to prevent the water from flowing in. The ministry and the government has failed to be proactive. We have a lack of leadership that is bordering on negligence, and the magnitude of flooding that we are facing now could have been avoided. The Naparima Mayaro Road is collapsing. Tabakit, several roads collapsed. Grand Couva, Moruga. We have government ministers who have been reacting and reacting very poorly. As we speak, we have several areas that are underwater. We have several riverbanks that continue to collapse, and the situation might get worse. I want to share with you now a video taken this morning on the bank of the St. Joseph River that borders Bamboo No. 2. This is an area where for months now, the residents have been clamoring for corrective action to be taken on the St. Joseph River bank. A lot of riverbank has collapsed, and here you are seeing erosion still taking place. Bamboo is under a lot of water right now, but the bank that is being shown in this video could collapse again. You see cracks on the bank where more parts of the bank is going into the river. And if this happens, Bamboo could get an increase in flood. This video was sent by residents of Bamboo this morning, in fact a few minutes ago. So the prevention has to be done. In Bamboo, I can tell you that the residents have been using sandbags to pack on the riverbank to try to secure the river from coming into the village. Because of the lack of action from the Ministry of Works to repair the St. Joseph River and to repair the floodgates, what has resulted is neck-high water in Bamboo. And I want to share with you, because I went into Bamboo with a boat, and I want to share with you some of the footage. This is in Temple Street and Bamboo Main Road, where you can see the levels of water, and you see even vehicles are covered. This video was taken from a boat that was brought to assist residents by the Kalpu brothers, who did so voluntarily. I, together with the councillor for the area, Seema Ramsaran, went on the boat and that had to take fuel down to the needed to be evacuated. The agencies responsible for these shelters must do better. Shelters and shelter management is not PR. Stop it. We have shelter managers who are ready, who are trained, and who are willing to manage these shelters. I am calling on the ODPM. I am calling on the disaster management agencies to ensure that all shelters going forward are properly equipped and supplied for in case of a disaster. And you can start that today, because as we speak, there are still people being evacuated from their homes. But we must also prepare for the future. There's need for restoration, a program for restoration of roads and bridges and other collapsed infrastructure. What I'm reminded that sometime last year in September 2011, there's a Newsday article that informed Trinidad and Tobago of the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility that had paid the government at that time $2.4 million US, which was 16 million, after the bad weather that occurred between August 18th and 20th of 2021. And the release from CCRIF said that the adverse weather caused by the intertropical convergence zone and that led to the heavy rainfall at that time, resulting in major flooding and landslides across southern and western Trinidad and Tobago, had caused 2 payouts to be made that was to be used for general cleanup of debris, to provide materials, building materials, appliances to households impacted by the rains, to provide payment to relief workers, and for repairs to the Uriah Butler Highway at the Caroni section, which was damaged in the 2018 rains. I share this article with you because recently we know that the government has received payouts from various insurance funds and disaster funds, and we are asking for accountability where this is concerned. Tell us how much money you have received for disaster response. Tell us what you are going to do with that money. We, as citizens, cannot simply get the Prime Minister telling us that it will go to the consolidated fund. That is not enough. I am calling on Prime Minister Keith Rowley today to respond as a leader. We have a lack of leadership at this time. Where is Keith Rowley in this crisis? In 2018, Keith Rowley, as Prime Minister, jumped on a plane and left Trinidad and Tobago in the midst of a crisis. His ministers are running about headless as we speak. The Minister of Works, the Minister of Local Government, the Minister of National Security, Minister of Social Welfare, all have critical roles to play in the response of this flooding disaster that we are facing. The last time we heard from Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley was 4 days ago when he made a Facebook post, and it was really telling us nothing that we did not know. Telling us that rain is falling and that we will get flood is not information. We want to know from you how you, as a Prime Minister of this country, is going to manage this. When Kamla Persad-Bissessar was Prime Minister, there was the National Operations Center and the National Security Council, which is led by the Prime Minister, to coordinate the agencies that are required to respond in time of crisis, including the ODPM, the regional corporations, the Army, the Coast Guard, the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Social Welfare. What we have today is a minister begging to take pity on him, saying, I am no superhero. Rohan Sinanan, we know that you are no superhero. No one is asking for you to be a superhero. This country is asking for the Prime Minister to take charge and for leadership to respond to this crisis. Unfortunately, yesterday in the Bamboo area, where residents are still under flood, both Minister of Local Government and the Minister of Works, Faris Alwari and Rohan Sinanan, received abuses from residents. And this reflects the level of frustration that people feel. The people in Bamboo have been complaining for years about the St. Joseph River. What we have is promises that within 18 months something will be done. The people of Valsin South have met with the Minister of Works, and his promise to have the St. Joseph River bank strengthened with over the next 18 months is not being received well by the residents, because 7 times in the last 2 months they were flooded out. So the residents and citizens have reached a stage where they are so fed up. And what we have now is being called a flood backlash. We see collapsing infrastructure, you see homes collapsing, and you see citizens up to their neck in water. I have not touched on agriculture, but in St. Augustine constituency, many of our farmers have lost all their food crops. This will impact on the price of food in the next couple of weeks. The Express editorial this morning really captured something that I think many are feeling. Part of the editorial indicated, this disaster calls for a massive, well-coordinated, integrated and effective response by the various state agencies mandated to provide relief and assistance to citizens in need. While communities all over in the country have suffered flood damage, the brunt appears to have fallen on communities in areas represented by the opposition United National Congress. The question today: are UNC constituencies being neglected by the government when it comes to prevention of flooding, when it comes to the response, and when it comes to aiding citizens? The ministers and the response of the government has caused more chaos due to their lack of plan and lack of coordination. There is chaos as to whether schools will be open or closed. There is chaos when there is traffic. There's chaos when you have traffic being diverted without a proper plan and proper notification. The so-called emergency response is haphazard and uncoordinated. We are not seeing the agencies that are responsible, who have boats, who have other resources to respond in these areas. We are not seeing roads that should be closed off being properly barricaded. What we have now is a lot of chaos and lack of leadership. So this country is not suffering from a lack of resources. It is a lack of management and pure incompetence by this government. I want to take this opportunity as the MP for St. Augustine, and one of the areas that has been hard hit, to call on the government to put politics aside and to do your job. I want to call on the Prime Minister to wake up wherever you are and attend to this crisis immediately. On behalf of the citizens of this country, we deserve the taxpayers' dollars to be working for citizens. At this time, I want to open for questions from the media.
MP, we have some questions coming in. MP, we knew this, state agencies knew this weather system was going to hit us for a while before it actually hit. Do you think that they were proactive enough in dealing with the fallout?
I can tell you, I can begin with the preparation of shelters. No agencies reached out to any of the shelter managers to prepare shelters in case there is need for evacuation. Several areas where there were breaches in the riverbank, little or nothing was done to strengthen those riverbanks to ensure that the breaches did not occur that is causing the flooding right now. The coordination that is required before to prevent situations like this did not take place. And what we are seeing is as a result of lack of action.
Based on your experience, can you tell us about what, in your estimation, is the cost value to the extent of the damage in Bamboo and St. Augustine?
The damage to residents, private homes, properties, certainly runs into the millions. The damage to infrastructure as well has to be assessed. I can tell you that when a person has 4 feet of water in their home, everything is damaged. All of their furniture and appliances and so on. And when you add that up and you compare it to the cost it would take to fix the riverbanks and fix the floodgates and prevent the flood, it is much less. So while the government is being called upon to provide compensation, I want to tell you that that compensation certainly will not replace all that people lost in the flood. But certainly you could prevent the government having to pay this compensation if the monies are utilized to secure the riverbanks and ensure that the floodgates and the pumps are functional.
We know that a large number of people have lost their stoves and fridges, as well as being marooned in their homes. How many people do you think have become more food insecure due to the floods?
Well, what we have at this time is persons who have lost all their grocery items in the flood, while persons are taking in cooked meals during these days while they are underwater. We will need to provide families with groceries, food support. We did have promises from the Minister of Social Welfare to provide food cards. We are waiting to see that materialize, but we also have an increase in prices in the market because of the flooding situation with the farmers, and people will be facing higher prices when they go to market to buy foodstuff. What we also have is a number of people who are not able to go to work because they are flooded out, and therefore their income would have been reduced because they missed a number of days at work. While some employers might be generous, quite a few people could lose their jobs because of the number of days that they stayed away from work. So that is something I'm very sensitive to, the social situation that this flood will put many people in. They are really being dragged back several footsteps because of the flooding that they face, their ability to provide for their family. In fact, we have people who lost even their kitchens, their pots, their stoves, in addition to their grocery items.
Yesterday, the Minister of Local Government outlined a series of grants that victims can access. Do you have confidence that these grants will be distributed on time?
Over the last couple months, on several occasions, areas in St. Augustine constituency, in South and other areas where flooding occurred, applications were made for these grants. I can personally tell you that in addition to the constituent making the application, I have also submitted lists of names of persons who have been affected, their damages and details for the citizens. No compensation has been received by anyone in St. Augustine constituency, and so I hesitate to have faith in the government that these grants will be provided. However, I trust that with the magnitude of this flooding, that there will be some change of heart to provide compensation, and the list of grants that is being circulated by the Ministry of Social Development that several ministers have been talking about would not just be propaganda and mamagai. Citizens are applying for grants, and I'm calling the government to give the grants to those flood victims.
And the PM in their 2015 manifesto announced that one of their plans was a national drainage plan. We're now in 2022, and there's still, well, the Minister of Works has said that it's still being worked on, and that the plan will not take into consideration smaller development drains that will be responsible for local government. What is your take on that?
You know, the PNM spent a lot of time bashing the UNC government led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar for being a box drain government. It seems as though the National Drainage Plan is resulting in the crisis that we are facing here. This is the result of the National Drainage Plan of the PNM. This is the result of total incompetence. When you see something happening and you knock it and you make promises, and now you are in government for more than a term and you cannot produce. The National Drainage Plan that was promised seemed to be mamagai. The Minister of Works also said that he intends to eliminate flooding in Trinidad and Tobago. We are still waiting for that. And I want to ask the PNM, stop making promises that you cannot keep. Stop mamagaying people for elections and bringing manifestos with promises that you cannot upkeep. Look at the situation we are facing today. You are blaming Kamla, you're blaming box drains, you're blaming climate change, you're blaming everything without taking responsibility. We are in a situation that the government has to begin by taking responsibility. It is not enough for you to blame citizens. If riverbanks are being breached, then the ministry has full jurisdiction legally to take action that is necessary. Any situation that you can tell us that there's a crisis emerging, it means that you have a responsibility. And everything that we are seeing now is because of the government's lack of competence and their reluctance to take responsibility. It is not enough to blame the opposition. It is not enough to blame the citizens. You are in charge. You are responsible. Take charge. Wake up Keith Rowley from wherever he is sleeping and let us get the response to this crisis in Trinidad and Tobago going now.
This is not, it is related to the flooding, but the situation that we saw yesterday with the water crossing the South Coast Highway, sorry, the Arrival Highway, and causing a backup traffic, I think well into the hours of this morning still, and then today is already backing up still.
Yes.
In a situation like that, the government took a while to actually open one avenue, which is the private bus route.
so on. And our councillors are really taking it, beyond the call of duty. All of you who are out there, please be safe as we continue to reach to those who are affected.